Shalom, and welcome back to Bnei Noach Academy, Thoughts on the Torah. Please remember to hit the like button, to subscribe, and most importantly, to share this insight and inspiration with friends and family. So when we get to the story, the enslavement and the hard labor that the children of Israel endured in Egypt, there's something that stands out and begs for some explanation, for some insight, especially considering that the Torah is not a book of history or a book of stories. Rather, it's a book of instruction. It tells us how to live our life. Through these stories, we're meant to learn lessons, to derive lessons and direction in how to better live our lives. So when you look in Exodus chapter 1, verses 13 and 14. In general, it's just describing how the Jews, the children of Israel, that is, were forced into backbreaking labor, unreasonable, hard, and difficult tasks. Yet, something stands out. It says that it was bechomer uvilvainim. There's something specific about mentioning the fact that this had to do with mortar and bricks. Now, fast forward several chapters. When you go to chapter 5, verses 6 through 8, when the Pharaoh is all upset and maybe perhaps in a very retaliatory mood, or at least in a very resentful mood, to the fact that Moses and Aaron are appealing to him to let the people go, to stop working, to release them from this enslavement. And he decided he's going to ratchet up the pain. He is going to make it even more difficult. You guys have too much time on your hands. You guys even have the capacity to think of such things. That means you're not working hard enough. So how did he make it more difficult for them? By imposing them more challenge. In what area? In the area of making bricks and mortar. Again, it seems to be all about the bricks and mortar. What is going on here? What is this all about? Well, let's think of bricks. What do bricks do? Bricks, when you put so many bricks together, you form a wall, and then you do that again. You have another wall, and then you have a structure, and then you have one building, and then you have another building. And with that, you start to build settlements, civilization, cities. You see, this is a means. These are building blocks. Now, what other building blocks were available to them at that time in history? Stone, rocks, natural stone. Notice that I called it natural stone. You see, the difference between bricks and stones is the fact that stones, although we could use them and perhaps even manipulate them to a certain extent in order to build, to make structures, but the fact is that they are God-made. They are made by the divine power. They're not up to the human being. They don't truly express the creativity ability, the innovative ability of a human being. Whereas making bricks, you take something that's entirely soft, that's almost totally useless when it comes to making structures and to building, at least in its original state. By manipulating it, by working with it, you turn it into the end product, which is a brick, a strong brick, a building block. And now you can build. Here comes to fruition. Here gets highlighted. Here meaning in the brick, in the mortar, gets highlighted that special, unique quality that the human being has. If you recall in the beginning of the book of Genesis, God says, let's create man in my image. What's his image? Of course, it doesn't mean a nose, ears, eyes. It means in the idea of God. What is the idea of God? God is the creator. True, nobody can parallel that. There is no way, because the creator, that is God himself, the Almighty, he created a world into something, and he did it from nothing. Whereas we, no matter how great our innovation is and our creative abilities, still we have to take some product, we need to have some resource, and then by manipulating it, we can turn it into something else. And that's the case here. And in that sense, we are the closest. We are at least reflect, mimic, somewhat emulate God, those godly abilities, the abilities of the creator. You see, the story of Egypt, it's not about just him oppressing the people. This was a spiritual war. This was a spiritual competition. Pharaoh represents the forces of tum'ah, of impurity, the forces of evil at the time. In fact, they were the greatest sorcerers. They were terrible idol worshippers. And they did not believe in God. As Pharaoh said, as soon as Moses and Aaron came and said, we don't believe in such a thing. We believe in ourselves. They understood this special quality, this unique ability that the human being has to be a creator, to be creative, to take one thing and manipulate it into something entirely different, to take soft straw, mix it with some water, and manipulate it into becoming a strong building block. They understood the power of that. They understood the value, the virtue of that. What they were seeking to do is to take that special creative power and harness it and redirect it towards the purpose of growing, of strengthening their powers of evil, their powers of impurity. Of course, God gives us these powers. He gives us these abilities, so we utilize them for good. So we can use them as to contribute to the betterment of the world, to the advancement of good and purity. They were trying to do the opposite. Thus, the lesson over here is, you and I, all of us, we have special talents. We have, in general, the collective, generally speaking, the collective talents of every human being, our ability to create, our ability to make things, our ability to innovate. And then each one of us has certain talents in which we stand out particularly. The lesson over here is, don't let the pharaohs of the world, don't let the Egypts of the world take away or misdirect, I should say, your special qualities as a human being, your special creative abilities, and to take them and misdirect them to the negative. Be sure always to utilize them for good things, for positive things, for making God's world a better place.